Hey everyone, this is RJL518. My real name is Robert. Joseph is not here today. Okay, yeah, okay, I do both. Both voices anyway. But I welcome you to a little bit of a opinion I'm putting out today concerning the college football playoff. Um, as we all know, okay, yesterday the college football playoff rankings came out on ESPN, and we actually had a good chance to take a look at them. And who here loves college football? Well, I do. I think college football is the greatest thing on planet Earth, okay? When you watch a game between Alabama, Auburn, or Florida State, Miami, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA, and you see the camaraderie and the fans in the stands, okay, it really is amazing how how that comes together. And then you watch a pro football game between the Dolphins and the Jets. Now, that was disappointing. It really was. But here's the thing, okay? If you notice the camaraderie and the atmosphere at a college football game is different than a pro football game, you already know that college football is definitely the best thing on planet Earth. But what I want to talk about today really is the college football playoff and I'm going to do a little simulation of a playoff using last year's. Now, let's take a look at the thing here. As you take a look at the ratings here, you see yesterday you had Ohio State number 1, LSU 2, Alabama 3, Penn State 4. The thing about this is that, and of course Clemson got left out, which I'm a little bit on the fence about because Clemson did win the whole thing last year. They haven't lost. Yeah, they had a close win over North Carolina earlier, but they didn't have a win. They didn't lose. It was close, but they didn't lose. So, what do we do here? So the playoff committee decided to put Clemson 5. Georgia being 6, I have no issue with. Georgia did lose a game. They lost to South Carolina at home. They did, and then Georgia went ahead and beat Florida and gave Florida their second loss and pretty much eliminated them from any chance. Oregon 7, I have no problem with. Oregon has a good chance to still get back in this thing. Need a little bit of help, but they could do it. Utah 8. Okay, fine. Oklahoma 9. Oklahoma still has a very good chance to get it, but they need a little help, and Florida is 10. I'm a little surprised that Florida is actually 10. Baylor is 8-0. They haven't lost yet. They got Oklahoma coming up next week, a week or two from now. So anything can happen there. But what I want to talk about is really how we could put together a much better playoff than we have. Now, granted, it's the best thing we've had since, ever. It really is. You are getting the best teams versus the best teams. But are we getting the most deserving teams? Well, my thought is this. What's the difference between college basketball and college football? College basketball, the regular season, really means nothing. You could lose every single game in the regular season as a college basketball team, but then you play your conference tournament no matter what your seeding may be. If you go ahead and win your conference tournament, it's an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. Period. So it's possible you could go 0-30, get hot, win 4 games in your tournament, or no matter how many you got to play in your bracket, depending on how many teams there are, you're going to the dance. College football, it's much different. The regular season means everything. Okay? The regular season means everything. And and you've got to win. It's very simple in college football. Win, and you're in. But sometimes, it doesn't always work that way. A few years ago, Penn State won the Big Ten championship. Penn State did not make the playoff. They beat Ohio State. They were actually ranked high. They were actually ranked very high and probably should have been put in. I think the reason why they didn't go in, and I think Ohio State was still put in. I believe the reason for that was because the sex scandal with Sandusky was still fresh in people's minds, and I think the NCAA didn't want to reopen that can of worms that was still recovering. In a way, the Sandusky issue messed up Penn State's chances of getting in. I'm going to try not to curse. But now we have and then, of course, last year, Georgia was a 2-loss team. And they put Notre Dame in. Did Notre Dame really deserve to be in there? Well, Notre Dame only had 12. That won every single game. The answer to that question is yes. And of course, we all know what happened to Notre Dame in that in that format anyway. Really didn't matter. So if you take a look here, we have Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, Penn State. Penn State has a huge game against Minnesota this week. Huge game. Means probably more for Penn State than does Minnesota. Does Minnesota really have... Minnesota's ranked number 17 on the playoff. Does Minnesota really have a chance to get in the playoff? I don't think so. Even if they win out. Even if they win out. But unless they have a whole bunch of help. And I mean a whole bunch of help to get in. But the problem with Minnesota is the rankings and the ratings. The one thing the college football committee is doing is they are choosing choosing the best players, or not players, the best teams, but they maybe are going also by the virtue of ratings grabbers. For instance, what game would you rather see? Ohio State versus Alabama, LSU versus Ohio State, maybe, or Penn State versus Clemson, or would you rather watch an exciting game between Minnesota versus Utah? So that does make me wonder about their picks. But the thing about it is, I believe, since in college basketball there are about over 325 college basketball teams, and they all have a shot to make the championship, because of ratings and such like that. The teams in college football don't. And I'm talking about the teams of the Group of Five conferences. The American Conference, the Mid-American Conference, Conference USA, the Sun Belt, and the Mountain West. There are a few teams in those conferences that actually do play good, strong out-of-conference opponents and are actually kind of mentioned in a playoff setting. For instance, last year was all UCF. People wondering, UCF was undefeated. Should have went. Perhaps they deserve the chance at it, but remember, UCF plays the American Conference, so you play against teams like Navy, Tulane, Temple, Cincinnati, South Florida. How would UCF do if we put them in the Southeastern Conference and have them play a schedule of Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina? They would probably win a couple games, but they would mostly get crushed, especially if they drew teams like Alabama, LSU, Auburn, or Mississippi State from the other division. How well would they do in the Atlantic Coast Conference? Maybe a little better, because the ACC is not as strong as the SEC, but you still have to deal with Virginia Tech, Miami, North Carolina, the occasional Florida State, the occasional Clemson, the occasional Virginia, and those teams. It'd be difficult for them, I think, to win in a schedule like that, because, I mean, when you play one power team a year and you get really psyched up and geared up for it, fine, you could win the game. But when you got to play that schedule every single week, that's much different. So UCF, I'm sorry. Yeah, you deserve it. You deserve a shot, but with the current playoff system, you can't get it. So now we have to reformulate the playoff system. A lot of people are saying realign the conferences, do this, do that. I would like to see a little conference realignment. There are some teams that really could be taken out of some conferences. Mostly, I'd love to see a promotion and relegation. Okay, really. I'd love to see that too, but we won't see that. The conference is going to stay as they are. There may be some realignment. I think the Big 12 needs to add 2 more teams to become the Big 12. Being called the Big 12 and named Big 10, with 10 conferences, 10 teams in there, yeah. I think somebody failed math. So, what do we do? Well, I created here a special a playoff format that I think works, and every team has the ability to get in there. You can still use the committee. The committee could be the deciding factor when it comes to seeding. So let's see. What do we do? Let's take a look at the 2018 college football standings last year. In 2018, the American Conference, UCF beat Memphis in a heck of a game. And I actually watched that. That was a heck of a game. Central Florida knocked out Memphis 56-41. Great game. Clemson dispatched Pittsburgh in the ACC. Ohio State dispatched Northwestern in the Big Ten. Oklahoma had a rematch against Texas. Good game. I really don't like the Big 12 setup. I think the Big 12, if the Sun Belt can go to 2 5-team divisions, the Big 12 can do the same thing. If you don't want to add, if you want to be 10 teams, then create a North and a South and do it that way. Okay. Conference USA, UAB came out of nowhere and beat Middle Tennessee, and UAB was the Cinderella story of that conference. And by the way, for those of you where I live here in South Florida. I live in Deerfield, Pompano Beach, Florida, very close to Boca, so I have Florida Atlantic right down the road. And of course, I root for the Canes as well. And I'm a big-time Dolphins fan, although they don't love me this year. And of course, you all know me, I love the Mets. I was born in Queens, New York, so I'm an automatic Mets fan. Mid-American Conference, Northern Illinois took out Buffalo in a close matchup. I actually did watch that game. That was fun to watch. I love the smaller conferences. You get some pretty good games out of there. Fresno State upset Boise State in the Mountain West to win that. Washington beats Utah in a very tight defensive matchup there. Alabama, of course, beats Georgia 35-28, and I thought might have been the game of the year. Unfortunately, Kirby Smart, because of going for that punt, that fake punt, he got my Jackass of the Year award for that. In the Sun Belt, Appalachian State knocked off Louisiana 30-19, and they won their division, and they won their conference. The Independents. Now, the Independents is a little tricky, because the Independents, which there really shouldn't be any more Independents. Notre Dame, go to the Big Ten. Army, go to the American Conference. Make the Army-Navy game a conference game, not just the season-ending game of the year. Brigham Young, get your butts back in the Mountain West. UMass, Liberty, I think you guys could actually do pretty well in either Conference USA or the American Conference. And New Mexico State, go back to the Mountain West where you belong to. There should be no independence, but we got them very well. And Notre Dame being the big draw they are, and trust me, people, I can't stand the Irish. I can't stand them. But do I love watching Notre Dame football? Oh yeah, because you get some great football games when you watch Notre Dame. So that's the truth there. Okay, so we have, for the independents, in my opinion, it's always possible you could have 10 teams or 11 teams in the playoff that I'm doing. The independents is simple. The highest ranked independent with 10 wins or more gets seeded into the playoff. In this case, Notre Dame did have 12 wins. Army actually had 10 wins at the time. They had 10 wins at the time, and but Notre Dame being the highest ranked independent and the most wins as an independent, they automatically get it. If neither team had 10 wins, in that case we go to a 10-team playoff format for this coming season, and there's no independence. In my opinion, very simple. You don't play a conference, you better win at least 10 of your games. I think that's right. So judging from what I've told you about, the rules of the playoff are very simple. Only conference champions go in, which means the regular season is still very important. Every single conference plays a conference championship game, and the winner of that game goes into the tournament. So, hey, if you're Alabama and you lose, tough. You're Ohio State and you lose, tough. Win your conference and get in. By doing that, and by utilizing the college football, this is the college football rankings at the end of week 15, before the playoff games, before the bowl game season was done. As you can see, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Georgia didn't get in. Ohio State with only one loss didn't get in. I would have put Ohio State in over Notre Dame because Ohio State had a tougher schedule, but Notre Dame was undefeated. So I have still no issue with that. UCF, I'm sorry. UCF, you would not beat Michigan. You would not beat Ohio State. You would not beat Georgia. You wouldn't beat any of these teams. But they still deserve a chance, though, don't they? In my playoff format, they do. Welcome to the college football playoffs of 2018. Here you can take a look and see in the college football teams I have here. I have this is where the committee comes in. The committee will go ahead and decide the seedings of the champions. They can only seed the champions of the conference. Alabama would be 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame would be 3, Oklahoma 4, Ohio State 5, UCF 6, Washington 7, Fresno State 8, Appalachian. Now these 8 teams were the only ones ranked. Appalachian State, UAB, and Northern Illinois, okay, were not ranked on the top 25. So by utilizing the 2-minute drill thank you to Al Red Sox fan for showing me about this, because this I thought was actually pretty darn cool. Okay, by utilizing the power ratings of these teams, I went ahead and used them to seed 9, 10, and 11, which Appalachian State in the Sun Belt had the highest with a power level of 14. UAB had a power level of 13. I ranked them 10th. And then from the Mid-American Conference, Northern Illinois, I ranked them 12th. So here you are, the college football playoff teams 2018, with Appalachian State, UAB, and Northern Illinois at the bottom. Since we're using a 11-team playoff round in this year, because Notre Dame did make it, I decided to go ahead and utilize this bracket. This bracket goes ahead and allows for an 11-team playoff system. The first 5 teams receive a bye week. The first 5 highest-seeded teams receive a bye. 8 will play 9, 7 will play 10, and 6 will play 11. We will reseed at the end of it. We'll reseed. Although they have the 8, 9 going to here, 7, 10 going to here, and 6, 11 going to here, I want to reseed it so that if you're the number 1 team, you should have the easiest. If you're ranked number 1, you should have the easiest route to the championship. Just like it works in all the other major sports. Whether it's baseball, football, basketball, or hockey, you should have the easiest route. So we reseed after this. I'm not going to follow the actual bracket format. It could still work either way, but I think you should reseed. There are many bowl games that are played in the season. Many different bowl games. You have many of them. Okay. In 2018, 2019, you had the Peach Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Las Vegas Bowl, Camellia Bowl, Bahamas Bowl, the Toilet Bowl, the Cereal Bowl, really. I mean, I personally think I think there's too many bowl games, really. Okay, I really think there is. Because the thing about it is, if you finish 6-6 in the college football, you're bowl eligible. I think it should be 7. I think you should get 7-5. At 7-5. Cut the amount of bowl games down, and you should be 7-5. Okay, guarantees you a bowl. 6-6 would only be a bowl filler. Okay, you should cut down the amount of bowls. I really think. There's just too much mediocrity in the bowl games, and of course the bowl games now are treated as they're really mostly treated as glorified exhibition games. All right, some student athletes go ahead and take the bowl game off because they don't want to get hurt, and so they can be drafted by the NFL. I completely understand that. Yes, it does hurt the integrity of that bowl game because you really want to see the best that one program has against the best the other program has to have. I understand that, but I get it. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to do what Willis McGahee did for the Canes one day. He got hurt in the bowl game, and although it didn't completely hurt his draft the next year with the Bills, okay, but I get that. So if they want to take the bowl game off because they don't want to be hurt and they want to train for the draft or the combine, that's understandable. That's understandable. So here's what you do. By looking at the bracket, you're going to have 4 weeks of playoff football. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games. So 10 bowl games are gone ahead and reserved for the playoff. So right now we have 41 bowl games in the season? We have 41 bowl games in the currently 41 bowl games. So 10 are automatically taken out for the playoff teams only, while the other 31 can go for everybody else. So you can still have your exciting Cure Bowl between Tulane and Louisiana, or your Camellia Bowl between Georgia Southern and Eastern Michigan, or the game you absolutely can't live without, or the game you absolutely can't live without, the Bahamas Bowl, when you see Florida International in a tremendous game against Toledo. It actually turned out to be pretty good, 35-32. And then, of course, the game everybody couldn't wait for, Army versus Houston, 70-14, and the Armed Forces Bowl. Whatever. We're trying to do this in a certain way. So, the first week of the bowl season is December 15th, and I believe if I look at the current schedule, let's see here. December 15th starts here this year and would go, it would be, that was last Saturday, was the 15th. So you would start your games on Saturday. So the first Saturday you could actually have 2 exhibition bowl games and 3 playoff bowl games. How exciting would that be on the first Saturday of the of my playoff? You could have 3 playoff games the first week. OMG. Let's take a look. The first round would feature, and I got to actually make changes, so give me a moment. Let's see here. We got, I make some changes here because I didn't change it when I moved it. So we'll change that to Northern Illinois. UAB stays where they are, and now this is Appalachian State. So the first round would feature a matchup between UCF and Northern Illinois. Washington would play UAB, and Fresno State would take on Appalachian State. Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Ohio State get the bye for the first week, so they will be off. They will not play in the week 1 of the playoff. Now, you can look at the second round, and the second round is already pretty much set, at least for 4 and 5. Oklahoma and Ohio State are guaranteed to play each other because Alabama will play the lower seed, Clemson will play the next lower seed, and Notre Dame will play the third lower seed. So Oklahoma and Ohio State, you already know that game is scheduled for week 2. Wow, I can't wait. Oklahoma and Ohio State? Are you kidding me? What a matchup that would be between those two. But you still got the preliminary rounds. Okay, UCF versus Northern Illinois. UCF was undefeated in American Conference play, went all the way through. Northern Illinois, let's take a look at them in the MAC. This is the 2018. I am using the 2018 download for a 2-minute drill. And if anybody has any questions, please ask. You can check with Al, Red Sox fan. He knows all about this. He uses it, and actually he makes it exciting with the die rolls and such. Okay, Northern Illinois, they were 8-6 overall, and they had a power rating of 12. So Northern Illinois finished there. Okay. And then you had Fresno State versus Appalachian State. Fresno State, being the Mountain West Conference champion, had a very good season. They beat Boise State. Not easy thing to do. Not easy thing to do. Fresno State, to me, is the Boston College of the West Coast. Boston College every year always puts out a competitive team. 5 to 8 wins, 6 to 9 wins. They could have really, really good, a really good season as well. Fresno State, same thing. They always put out a competitive team every single year out there. So I call them the Boston College of the West. All right. So Fresno State versus Appalachian State. That would actually be an exciting game. Fresno State, from the Mountain West Conference, has a power rating of 16. They were 12-2 overall. They had a very good year. Sun Belt, Appalachian State was 11-2 overall last year. A little lower power rating, which I understand. The Sun Belt is not as strong as the Mountain West. But I will admit, lately they've been getting stronger. Okay, Appalachian State this year has had an excellent season. Okay, they got beaten by I believe by Georgia. I think it was Georgia Southern beat them last week. So Georgia Southern knocked them off. Okay, never count out teams like Troy, ULM, Louisiana Monroe, even Georgia State could play some pretty good football. And this new team, Coastal Carolina. The Sun Belt Conference is a nice conference, and people take it for granted. Don't. There's not a bad football. They're not a bad bunch of football teams. There's not a bad bunch of football teams in any of these conferences. And I like watching. I like watching them. So I go ahead here and I'll put UCF. So I have Fresno State versus Appalachian State. Fresno State would probably be favored in this game, but not by much. Not by much. So how are we going to figure out what happens? Well, thanks to our ball roller, version 1.04, we're going to find out. So we're going to utilize the quick determine to see what kind of a playoff schedule we would have had. Okay. Let's do okay. So let's see what happens the first week, shall we? Let's see what happens. UCF versus Northern Illinois. UCF would definitely be favored in this game. They were undefeated. Northern Illinois actually had it. Northern Illinois did win the Mid-American Conference. Okay, but when you play against teams like Eastern Michigan, Akron, Toledo, Miami, Ohio, all right, they're not as strong as UCF played against Memphis, Houston, truly. So let's go. Let's do this first. We're going to do it the way I don't have time for most of the rules, but for those of you who watch Al Red Sox fan, he shows you how it's done. But let's see what we have here. So we have UCF versus Northern Illinois. So first we're going to roll for UCF. So we got to go to the American Conference. And let's see if I can increase the size of this. Let me increase the size. No, it won't. Okay, so it's stuck at the size of this. All right, fine. All right, so Central Florida. The first thing you roll is it's going to be defense for Central Florida, and then it's going to be defense for Northern Illinois. So we roll the first one, and Central Florida rolls a 62, so they give up 14 points. They give up 14 points to Northern Illinois. And Northern Illinois rolled a 43. So we go to the Mid-American Conference. And Northern Illinois rolled a 43 on defense, and they give up 13 points to UCF. So at the end of the first half, actually, Northern Illinois has a lead on UCF 14-13. Okay, so that's actually pretty good right now. So Northern Illinois is hanging in there, but UCF is the better team. We're about to find out why as we now go to offense. So now we're going to go back to Northern Illinois, and we're going to now roll offense, and it'll be UCF as top and Northern Illinois as bottom. We roll. UCF rolled a 12. So let's go to the AAC again. So Central Florida rolled a 12. And they get 28 points. So they get 28. And Northern Illinois rolled an 05. Oh, well, I guess I blew that. It's not supposed to be that, am I? Let's see what we got here. Let's see if we can fix that. Let's see. Yeah, it's not a base. This is base is 1. Okay, so let's re-roll that again. Let's re-roll it again. Save the options, and I'll re-roll just the bottom. And they rolled a 31. Okay, so 31 for Northern Illinois. So Mid-American Conference, Northern Illinois. And they rolled a 31. And they roll a 13, and they get 13. So back to here. And 13. There's no overtime. It's not a tie. So UCF actually wins 41-27. So game 1 of the college football playoff. This could be, let's real quick. Let's say this is, you got, this is December 15th. So they had 5 bowl games. The Cure, New Mexico, Las Vegas, Camellia, New Orleans. Let's say Orlando, New Mexico. The first game would be Orlando. So this would be the Cure Bowl. And since UCF was the highest rank, they actually get to play in the closest. Now, you can play in your home stadium, and it has happened. So as far as I'm concerned, it happens here. Okay? So UCF in the Cure Bowl defeats Northern Illinois 41-27. That's a competitive game. That's competitive. Northern Illinois hung out tough, but the better team here won. So UCF goes ahead and wins 41-27. Congratulations. So then we take a look at the next game. Washington versus UAB. Washington would be a very heavy favorite here. You're talking about the Pac-12 champion against the Conference USA champion. UAB would really have no hope in this. I really don't think they could pull it out. But let's find out and see. So we have Washington versus UAB, and we'll put this into the in Montgomery. Well, no, Washington actually is the higher seed, so it's going to be closer to them. So this would be the New Mexico Bowl at Albuquerque, New Mexico. So this would be in New Mexico, since Washington's the higher seed. They actually have the upper hand here. So let's get back to here and see what we do here. Washington. We'll get to here first. We'll do them, the Pac-12. Let's roll. Washington is top. UAB is bottom. Washington, 45. Defensively, Washington gives up, 17 points. They give up 17 points to UAB. So UAB gets 17 points. That's a lot. That's not a good roll for Washington. Now we'll see what UAB gives up. UAB is 64. UAB is Conference USA, Alabama, Birmingham. They give up 64, and they gave up 14 of their own. They gave up 14 as well. So although UAB got 17 points, Washington scored 14 of their own. So at the end of the half, UAB leads Washington 17-14. Pretty close, actually. Actually, pretty close. Washington fans are getting a little nervous, thinking, wait a minute, how in the world could we be trailing UAB? It's not uncommon remember, it always happens a lot where, a lot of weaker college football teams go ahead and, sometimes surprise the opponent a little bit. But that's what halftime is for. Let's go to offense, shall we? We'll re-roll for the offense right now. Washington rolled a 14. So back to Pac-12. Washington gets 17 points. So 17 points for Washington, which right now gives them a total of 31. UAB rolled a 44. Now, the one thing I didn't do was take in power equivalent of UCF in Northern Illinois. I didn't take in the power rating. I guess I probably should do that. And UCF in Northern Illinois, just for the heck of it, before I go, let's first find out what UAB did. UAB rolled a 44. Back to Conference USA. Let's see, 44, 21. So UAB scored 21 points. UAB scored 21 points. And guess what? UAB leads 38-31. So you're telling me UAB beats Washington? It could happen. Washington's defense wasn't that great a football team out there. But now let's take a look at the power rating and see if we really need to make a change. Washington, this is where the power rating now would come in. Washington's power rating, according to Pac-12, Washington's power rating is 17. UAB's power rating is 13. So it's a difference of 4, +4 and -4. Now, what the rules state is that you're supposed to add whoever's got the higher power rating, you need to add it, and then you subtract the other. Subtract one and subtract the other. If that is true, and I did not create a thing for power rating, so +4. So, and I'm going to, real quick here, I'm going to insert a column here and write power. So Washington is +4, and UAB is -4. That means that it goes from 31 to 35. And that goes 35 to 34. So in a real tight matchup, Washington defeats UAB 35 to 34. In one heck of a game, Alabama Birmingham almost stuns the Huskies. If it was the other way around, UAB would have upset Washington. I think UAB in this case would not. But in this case, we're going to let the power rating start now. For UCF in Northern Illinois, we didn't do that. So UCF's power rating, the American Conference, is 18, and Northern Illinois' and Northern Illinois was 12. So it's 18. So it's actually +6 -6. So power rating is 6 and then -6 and -6. So actually the final score of this game would be 47-21. So UCF does do its job. But here, Washington holds on to beat UAB in one heck of a game. I think that I would have loved to watch that. The third game of the playoff week features Fresno State versus Appalachian State. I think this would be the closest one, but so far UAB and Washington has shown me that I don't know if it can get any closer than that. So you have Fresno State versus Appalachian State. So let's see what happens. We're going to make the roll. First, let's get the power rating, which we should do first. Fresno State, Mountain West. Power rating is 16. And power rating for Appalachian State from Sunbelt is 14. So 16 minus 14, so it's a +2. It's a +2 and a -2. So Fresno State gets 2 points, and Appalachian State is -2. So that's the power rating now. Now let's have a roll. Let's do the roll, shall we? Defensive rolls first. Let's see what happens in this tight game. We'll make this the, let's see here. How about we make this, Fresno State and Appalachian State. Make this the Las Vegas Bowl. Since Fresno State's closest there, we'll make it the Las Vegas Bowl, since Fresno State gets closer because of the seeding. So let's have a look and see what happens, people. 43-23. Fresno State rolls a 43 on its defense. And we come up here and we get a 10. Jeez. Yeah, sometimes I'm clicking worthy. So we get a 10. So Appalachian State gets 10 points. A 23 for Appalachian State's defense on Sunbelt is 7 points. So Appalachian State leads Fresno State 10-7 after the first roll. That's the kind of game I expect you would get between these two. But as I said, Fresno State plays very good football as the Boston College of the West Coast. I actually personally think Fresno State could actually go into the Pac-12 and play. I think the Pac-12 should become the Pac-14. Fresno State and Boise State both enter. Boise State has already shown to me they belong in a Power 5 conference, and I think the Pac-12 would be perfect for Boise State. They would get their butts whooped early, but they would be able to recruit better, and I really think they'd have a legitimate shot at making a playoff one day. I truly do. All right, let's do the offense. Fresno State 53, Appalachian State 23. Okay, so Fresno State, Mountain West rolled a 53, and they got 17 points. So Fresno State gets 17 on offense. Appalachian State rolled a 23, so you go back to Sunbelt. A 23, and they also rolled 17. And they also rolled 17 points on offense. So 7 plus 17 is 24, plus 2 is 26. It's 10. 17 is 27, minus 2 is 25. Because of the power rating, Fresno State beats Appalachian State. The more powerful team should win. I actually do agree with that. The more powerful team should win. Another close game between Fresno, another close game like Washington UAB, although UAB really rolled well, okay, to get there. But I have a funny feeling, if I was to try to play Washington UAB a second time, I don't think it would turn out the same way. But Fresno State just barely gets by Appalachian State to win the first round and move on. There is no overtime, so that's our scoring. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to bold them, and bold them as winners. Okay? I'll be back in a moment, people. As soon as I can find the pause button here someplace. I don't know what happened to it. Let's see here. Yeah, it's got to be here someplace. I wish I could do these things sometimes. Sometimes I just gotta. There we go. I'm sorry if I talk too much, guys. You know, I'm just trying to get my point across of this college football playoff that I think we could do. All right. Anybody has any comments after watching this? And let me tell you something. If you actually watch this thing all the way through, I'll give you some serious credit. I doubt I could watch myself with this. All right. So we're now in the second round, as we're now completed, as you can see. So the second round would feature Alabama versus Fresno State, Clemson versus Washington, Notre Dame versus UCF, and Oklahoma for Ohio State. I don't care what anyone says. If you're not geared up for at least 3 of the 4 of those games, then you're not excited about college football. Okay, Alabama versus Fresno State. I could probably roll that out maybe 20 times, and I don't think Fresno State would ever beat them. Clemson versus Washington. What a heck of a game that really would be. Washington is still a very strong school, very strong program, and they're the Pac-12 champions. Clemson, of course, got something to prove, and Washington would be a very tough would not be an easy obstacle. Okay, that would be a heck of a game. Clemson versus Washington, I definitely would look forward to that one. Notre Dame versus UCF. Well, Central Florida, you wanted your chance at the big boy? There you go. Good luck. Oklahoma versus Ohio State. How could you not get excited for that one? This would be week 2 of the college football playoff. So let's have a look at the schedule here. And they're reseeded. So the next schedule, you have the Birmingham Bowl, the Armed Forces Bowl, the Dollar General Bowl, and the Hawaii Bowl. It's 4 games, so why not? Make the rest of the week. We can make the rest of the week's games exhibitions, but the 4 games on Saturday, make them the bowl games. A game at 12, 3, 6, and 9. I think the first game would be, so you have the Birmingham Bowl, Alabama. It would be held in Birmingham. Alabama gets that game. You got a game. You have another game in Mobile. You got 2 games in Mobile, Alabama. So 2 games in Alabama, 1's in Texas, and 1's in Hawaii. Okay. With that being said, let's see here. 2 games in Alabama. Give Alabama, Fresno State the one in Birmingham. Give maybe Notre Dame, UCF. Maybe Notre Dame, maybe Clemson, Washington. Give them the other Alabama game. Notre Dame versus UCF. Maybe put them in Hawaii. Okay, or maybe Oklahoma, Ohio State. But remember, those are just the bowl games that are being used. Okay, on that week, it doesn't make you could switch them around. You could put them where you want to put them. Okay, it's best. It's fine. Okay, for the playoff games. I think it'll be almost even. I wonder what would happen if you played at the home team site, but we're not. I don't think you'd do that. In college football, you should be playing at a neutral site. However, remember 2 years ago, the Miami Hurricanes played the Orange Bowl on their home field, and unfortunately, we know how that turned out. Okay, so we have Alabama versus Fresno State. So let's do them first, shall we? All right. Alabama's on top. Fresno State's on the bottom. Let's see how this will work out. First roll is 11 and 53. Alabama from the Southeastern Conference. Well, okay, let's do this. Hold on. I'll get the power ratings in here first. Alabama's power rating is a 20, and Fresno State's power rating is a 16. So Alabama has a +4, has a +4 power rating, and it's a -4 for them. So really, Alabama is +8. That's really how that works. It's +8. So Alabama. So we go back to the sheet, and we're going to give Alabama a +8 power rating. So they get a +8 power rating. Clemson, Washington. So Alabama will be favored by at least a touchdown. Okay. So I'm going to give Alabama an extra 8 points instead of doing it this way. So in the case, actually, maybe that's the way I should have done it, I guess. I know how he does it. You subtract 1, subtract there. Fresno State would have just gotten 4 points. Washington would have gotten 8, and UCF would have gotten 12. So that means UCF would have crushed them even more. Perhaps. We'll see how that works out. Okay. So Alabama's 11. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to the roll. So Alabama's at 11, and they only give up 6 points on defense. That's typical Alabama, I think. That's typical Alabama. So Alabama gives up 6 points to Fresno State, and Fresno State rolled a 53. Back to the Mountain West Conference, and Fresno State gave up. Wow, Fresno State only gave up 3 points to Alabama. That's a good roll. That's a great roll for Fresno State. They only gave up 3 points. So Fresno State actually, after the first roll, leads 6-3. Leads 6-3. That is a great roll by Fresno State. But now let's see how the offense comes out. We roll 23 for Alabama and 66 for Fresno State. 23 for Alabama. On the offensive card is 24. So 24. So 3 plus 4 is 20. So 24. And that comes up with 35 points for Alabama. Fresno State, however, they got to score more than 32. Well, they rolled a 66. So Fresno State rolled a 66 and they got 10. Well, that ain't going to cut it, is it? So Fresno State rolls 10. Even if the power rating was wrong, it wouldn't have mattered. So the final score of this game is Alabama 35, Fresno State 16. Very believable. Very believable. I believe Fresno State really would not be a match for Alabama. Alabama just has way too much offense, and Tua would have a very good day against the Fresno State defense that really is not used to playing against a team of that caliber. So Alabama knocks out Fresno State. We move on to the next game. Clemson versus Washington. This is another interesting matchup. Let's have a look at the power ratings first. Clemson, ACC. Clemson has a power rating of 20. And Washington in the Pac-12 has a power rating of 17. So 20 minus 17 is 3. And I'm going to go ahead and give Clemson a +6 on it. So we go here, and Clemson is a 6-point favorite. So now let's see how it works. Clemson, Washington. We roll. Clemson gets a 53. So Clemson, the Tigers, 53, give up no points to Washington. So the Huskies get blanked. They get blanked. Washington rolled a 51 on defense. So now we go to the Pac-12. And Washington, at 51, gave up 7. So both teams actually did play pretty well with the rolls, but Clemson takes a 7. But Clemson has a 7-0 lead after roll 1. Now we do roll 2. Let's see how this works. We roll 15 and 33. Clemson 15 on offense. Back to the ACC. So Clemson at 15 scored 21. So a 21 for Clemson. And Washington rolled a 33. A 33 for Washington, and that is 13. Well, we know that's not going to cut it. We already know Clemson moves on. So I expected a much better game, but it didn't turn out to be that as good as it was. So Clemson knocks out Washington 34-13. Maybe in this game, UAB gave Washington such a headache, and Washington didn't recover. Plus, Washington had to play the week before. Clemson did not. So Clemson goes ahead and blows Washington out 34-13. I agree with that. Clemson probably would, but it would be still, but the hype for that game would still be pretty interesting. I believe. I really do. Notre Dame versus UCF. This would be maybe the game a lot of people look forward to because the UCF haters say, look, you want to play with the big boys? Go right ahead. UCF actually thinks they can play with the big boys. Let's see what they come out with. Let's take a look at power ratings first. Notre Dame has a power rating of 18. UCF, Central Florida, has also a power rating of 18, so there is no plus or minus. So according to his report, his thing, he believes that Central Florida and Notre Dame are equal. Who knows? Let's find out. Let's do the roll. Notre Dame, however, is first. They're the top. So let's roll. As you can see, Notre Dame is first. They're the higher seed. So let's roll and see what happens. Notre Dame rolls a 52. UCF a 61. A 52 for Notre Dame. Defensively, Notre Dame gives up only 3 points. Where's that high-powered offense there, UCF? So 3 points to UCF. UCF rolled a 61. And Central Florida gave up 13 points. So after the defense roll, Notre Dame leads UCF 13-3. That's probably about right. UCF could very difficult against Notre Dame's defense. It's still very strong. And Notre Dame put points on, but UCF still held on. But now, here comes the offensive roll. A 21 for Notre Dame and a 45 for UCF. Notre Dame a 21. Let's have a look. Independent. Notre Dame 21 scored 17 points. And UCF rolled a 45. 45, and they scored 21, and they scored 21 points. Is it enough? And the answer is no, it is not. It is not. So Notre Dame knocks out UCF, but a close game, 30-24. No power rating included. So UCF's got nothing to be ashamed about. You lost to Notre Dame. Not easy to beat. Even in Notre Dame's worst years, Notre Dame was not an easy team to beat. So they got nothing to be ashamed of. So Notre Dame knocks out UCF, but at least UCF got the chance to play them. So they won their conference, and they got a chance to play them. Now the final game, this, of course, is the game of the week. Oklahoma versus Ohio State. Like I said, how could you not be excited for that? If you're a college football fan, I don't care if you're not a college football fan, you watch that game. Everybody, the thing about college football and pro football, everybody, I get the question asked all the time. Is there a good football game on this weekend? And I say, there's a good football game on every weekend. There's always something to watch, whether it's your favorite team or not. There's going to be something you want to sit down, grab a beer, and watch a good football game. And trust me, watching it on my 75-inch Samsung QLED out there, 4K, especially now they're putting out games in 4K, it doesn't get any better than that. It's almost like I'm at the dang stadium. Oklahoma versus Ohio State. Gotta love it. Let's have a look at it, shall we? Oklahoma, let's take a look at the power rating, Big 12. Oklahoma's power rating is 18, and Ohio State's power rating is 20. So Ohio State actually is the 2, so they get a 4-point boost. So Ohio State, even though Ohio State is the lower seed, they get the 4-point boost. So Oklahoma's going to be playing a little bit from behind here. So let's see what happens. Let's click the roll. Oklahoma on top, Ohio State on the bottom. Oklahoma 31. So Big 12, Oklahoma 31. They give up 16 points to Ohio State. Now, Oklahoma's defense was not that great. They gave up a lot of points that year. So 16 points seems to be the norm on that. So they gave up 16 points to Ohio State. I'm sorry, wrong ones. 16 points to Ohio State. And Ohio State rolled a 45. So let's see how they did there. Big Ten. Ohio State rolled a 45. They gave up 14 points. Wow, okay. So they gave up 14 points in that game. So we got a close matchup. So at the end of the roll, Ohio State leads Oklahoma 16-14. I think that's exciting. I think it's exciting. We're going to say Ohio State 16-14. We'll say Ohio State scored 1 touchdown and 3 field goals. That's pretty much how you would get it. Oklahoma scored 2 touchdowns. But now, the offensive roll. Let's have a look, people. 36-64. Oklahoma 36 on the Big 12. 36. They score 34 points. Yeah, that Oklahoma offense was staggering with Kyler Murray last year. So they score 34. And Ohio State so they have a whopping 48. Ohio State rolled a 64. So let's see what we got here at 64. Ohio State 64. And they get 17. I don't think that's enough. Let's find out. 17. And we sum them up, and it is not enough. Ohio State was the stronger, but Oklahoma put the points up, and they get it. They get the win. So Oklahoma downs Ohio State 48-37. Now, what did we prove here? The higher-seeded teams won anyway. Okay, fine. They won anyway. But the other teams had a chance. The weaker teams had a chance. UCF had a chance. Fresno State had a chance. Washington had a chance. Ohio State had a chance. But they got beaten by the better teams. So the funny thing is that by running this off, the actual second round, you actually do get the 4 anyway. Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma. They were the 4 playoff teams put in, and they still make it in. Granted, we almost had the occasional upset. We had UAB almost beating Washington, and Appalachian State almost beating Fresno State. But truth be told, okay, none of those teams would have made it through anyway. But at least they had a shot. Imagine if UCF or Northern Illinois actually beats in Alabama or Clemson. Now, would that be a ratings disaster? Perhaps. But think about the recruiting that school could do now. Hey, I'm the head coach of Fresno State, okay? We gave Alabama we beat Alabama last year. Come to my school, and we're going to go further in the next round. You see what I'm talking about? It's not just a way to boost the actual how many teams you could put in the playoff, but you know how you could go ahead and increase recruiting. Television ratings might take a hit in some games, but you don't think everybody would be tuned in to watch Oklahoma, Ohio State? I think they would. You don't think people would be tuned in to watch an upstart UCF team play Notre Dame? I would. A game between Clemson and Washington certainly wouldn't be all bad, and Fresno State might give Alabama a headache early on in the game. You know what I'm talking about? Let me do a quick reset, and I'll be right back. I'm back, people. So I sort of did a reset now. So now the third round will feature Alabama versus Oklahoma and Clemson versus Notre Dame. It's a rematch. It's a rematch of both playoff games from last year. But as I'm trying to prove my point, that it's still the weaker teams have a chance to get through there. Okay. Like I said, if anybody has any comments, let me know. If anybody would like to see me redo this playoff tournament I'm doing, but utilize Action PC Football, all right, in the 2018 football season, let me know if you like me to redo. I'll do all the games. I'll probably play offenses for both teams, but why not? Why not? So. So maybe we could do it that way. So, but let's go to this. So we once again have Alabama versus Oklahoma. We know how a shootout that game was, and you got Clemson versus Notre Dame. So let's let's do it. Alabama versus Oklahoma we'll do first. Let's see here. Alabama. Let's get the power ratings. Alabama SEC is a 20. We already know that. And Oklahoma's power rating in the Big 12 was 18. So Alabama already has, it's 20 minus 18 is 2. We double it to 4. We double it to 4. So Alabama starts with a 4-point increase because of power rating. Let's see how it goes. Defensive roll. Alabama 53, Oklahoma 11. Alabama 53. They will go ahead and give up 14 points on defense. Okay. And knowing Oklahoma's offense, they can do that. So 14 points on defense. So Oklahoma scores 14. Oklahoma rolled an 11. So see how much Oklahoma gets. And they give up 14 points on defense. So it's a tie game. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So Alabama and Oklahoma tied at 14 at the end of the first roll. Kind of like the game we would expect between these two in a rematch with these guys. Let's do the offensive roll. A 14 and a 15. Alabama in the SEC. Alabama of 14, they get 31 points. And Oklahoma rolled a 15. And they get 21 points. Well, we already know who won that game. So Alabama will advance once again to the national championship game as they beat Oklahoma 49-35. But a heck of an offense, kind of like the way the game ended. Actually, Alabama did beat Oklahoma. Kyler Murray was crazy in that game. Alabama just a touch better, and maybe that game kind of wore out Alabama, and maybe the reason why Clemson beat them in the next game because Alabama was just awful in that game. But Alabama does beat Oklahoma, and they advance. Now we'll do a rematch between Clemson and Notre Dame. Clemson, we know, had a power rating of 20. So let's have a look. So we already know Clemson's power rating is 20, and Notre Dame's power rating was 18. So it's going to be a 4-point boost for Clemson. So we'll go back to that. Now, that's what I'm thinking I'm doing here. I know, I understand. I reread his rules. If anybody out there does use the system, and if I'm doing it wrong, please tell me so I know how to do it right next time. I'm kind of guessing here a little bit on this, but it looks like I'm still getting the realistic scores that we're expecting to get. So Clemson, Notre Dame, let's roll. Defensive roll. Clemson, a 14. Clemson gives up 7 points to Notre Dame. So Notre Dame gets 7. Notre Dame rolled to 12. Go to the independent. And Notre Dame gave up 10. So Clemson does have the lead of the first roll, 10-7. Now we go to the offensive roll. This is where I think Notre Dame is going to get slaughtered. Both teams roll a 14. Clemson on a 14 rolled 31. Remember, Clemson had 925 points of offense that year. So they put 31 points on the board. Notre Dame rolled a 14, independent. And Notre Dame, 14, they get 14 points. So Clemson again would beat Notre Dame again 45-21. Yeah, I agree. So far, it's going the way it should between these two. There's still the occasional possibility that the roll could have gone Notre Dame's way, but in this case, Clemson does beat Notre Dame 45-21. So now you get your rematch between Alabama and Clemson. So you have your rematch. I'm going to go ahead and set it up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so so now we're in the fourth round, and the fourth round, of course, would be Alabama versus Clemson. So was there really any changes? No, there actually were more games to watch. That's the thing about it. This is also great for the fans. You're going to get more college football playoff games to watch. The conference championship games are playoff games because the only way you can get into the college football playoff is to win the conference. So the SEC championship, the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, the Sun Belt are all conference championship games. If you win your division, you have a chance to go. Okay? So this is how, but then again, as you see, push comes to shove, UCF, the higher seeded teams have all won. There weren't any upsets, but that doesn't mean there can't be any. And yes, you would root for the Cinderella team once in a while. Okay, if you hate Alabama, you're going to be rooting for Fresno State. If you hate Notre Dame, you're going to be rooting for UCF. Although in this case, I think with UCF upstarts thinking they belong in the playoff, I submit to you guys this year, shut up. And don't talk about my Canes because my Canes are just as bad. Alabama versus Clemson would be the fourth round. We both know both of them have a 20 power rating, so there's not going to. So they say this would be a even battle. We just roll. Alabama rolls a 23 and Clemson a 12. So Alabama, let's see, Alabama 23. They'll give up 14 points to Clemson. Not something you want to do. You need a better roll than that, Alabama. So they give up 14 points to Clemson. Clemson rolled a 12. And Clemson gave up only 3 points to Alabama. Wow, boy, that defense stuffed them. Stuffed them. If you're Alabama, you could not give up 14 points on defense. I think this is already going to wind up the same way it would. Clemson 14, Alabama 3. But now it's up to Alabama's offense to outshoot them. But Clemson had 950 points scored that year. I don't think so. Let's see what happens. Alabama rolls a 22. And Alabama scores 31 points. That's good. That's good. They scored 31 points on offense. But Clemson rolled a 35. So let's go back to the ACC. Clemson rolled a 35, and they score 24 points on offense. I think that's going to be enough. And it is enough to do it. Although it was a little closer than last year's was, it's a closer game last year, but Clemson does beat Alabama 38-34, although this game was closer than last year's game was. Alabama looked totally lost. I watched that game and Alabama just looked totally lost. Even Nick Saban had his arms folded and he probably just didn't know what to do. Okay, congratulations once again. The Clemson Tigers win another championship. If anybody would like to see me do this again for maybe a different season or a different set of teams, let me know. I actually kind of like how this works out. It's a good way to do a quick schedule. Maybe I'll do the 2017 season, or I can't do this year's because of course this year's cards aren't out yet by our friend who makes this great game. But I mean, what do you guys think? But I did this time to just prove a point that the college football playoff is still better than what we've had before, but it could still use a little work. And does it need to be expanded? I agree, but only to the conference champions. Give the smaller teams a chance. Please. Why is it every year it's always Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Notre Dame? It's always the same teams every year. A couple years ago, we had Washington in it. I think you had Washington in the playoff, and they got dumped. Okay, but it's always the same teams every year. If you go ahead and do it this way, you're going to have different teams in the playoff every year. Teams that are going to be looking for a chance. Yeah, you might have still the same strongest teams in there every year. Okay, but you're going to have some other teams that were not there last year, maybe in there this year. This is just my humble opinion. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I don't know anything. I'm stupid, but I just wanted to have a little fun and see how this works out with you guys. So, if everybody would like to see me redo this exact same thing, but this time play the games out, maybe with Action PC Football College, maybe when the season is over or so. I want to let you know I'm still running my Miami Dolphins replay. Check my channel. You can also check my New York Mets 1986 New York Mets replay, which is not going as well as it should be, but we're still there. And of course, the Dolphins replay is the 1984 Miami Dolphins, which is my favorite Dolphins team. So, and of course, I also have some Stratomatic on there. I also have a little bit of and some other stuff as well. So check my channel out. Please leave a like if you like what I had to say. And if you didn't, okay, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. This is Robert of RJL518 signing off. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for watching.